Hi, my name is Toni Marie Burkhalter, and today we're going to be talking about sport and exercise nutrition in children. And I just want to let you know that this might be a little different than some of the other presentations that I'm going to be sharing with you. The information for today is information from me as a mother, as an aunt, as a sibling. A textbook can give you some information. However, the little nuances, those tidbits that are going to be most helpful when you're trying to feed the little guys as they're growing up, as well as make sure they're physically active, may need to come from someone with a lot of experience and kind of a candid way of sharing it. So I'm going to be sharing with you some of the trials that can be more applicable as you work with this age demographic. And you may ask, what is this age demographic? What's the definition of a child? Well, a child is a young human being. It's prior to puberty, but after most of them have started walking. It's individuals from 2 to 10 years old. And there are some unique characteristics of children. First, they've got some major changes in their body and body composition. There's rapid growth. If you think about a 2-year-old, oftentimes they're a little over 20 pounds. And then if you're thinking about a 10-year-old, they can be 60 pounds, 70 pounds, 80 pounds. So triple the body weight in a very short window of time. These children have no true control over their lives. The parents are making almost all the decisions. So ultimately, these children are dependent on those around them. And as we're discussing physical activity, there's an increase in coordination as well as skill when we go from 2 years old through 10 years old. 2-year-olds have just learned how to run through the house, whereas a 10-year-old may be mastering some body movements such as wrestling, skills drills with basketball, and more. When we're talking about this age demographic, there are many challenges to healthy eating. We have finicky eaters. We've got children eating at schools or childcare where the parents don't have complete control over these planned meals. There might be financial challenges for families, which trickle down to challenges for the children themselves. And then there's also a lack of parental education in nutrition, not just for parents, but let me just say for a lot of individuals in the population at large. So if we're trying to feed some finicky eaters, some children are only going to eat select foods. I've had parents come to me sharing that their child only eats chicken nuggets, corn, potatoes, and they only drink milk or chocolate milk. Well, what I want to say is it takes several times of introducing a food to a child before they really decide that it's something they enjoy or that they might want to adopt long term. One way to introduce new foods to your finicky eaters is giving them choices. Here's a visual example of a way that you can give a child lots of different choices at one sitting. You can take an ice cube tray and put different brightly colored fruits, vegetables, snack foods, and other items in there for the children to try. Then you can encourage them by praising them as they try different ones. You can challenge them by you sitting down with your own snack tray right in front of them and say, "Oh, have you tried this one?" And then you can talk about the foods as you go through them. If you're discussing a child who's going to be eating a school or childcare center meal, ultimately the goal of many of the lunch programs is to serve an inexpensive food that meets the basic nutritional guidelines given forth. And so we have a percentage of calories from carbohydrates, a percentage of calories from protein, a percentage of calories from lipids, and a certain number of calories overall. And if you're looking at some of those meals that are served to children, one example might be French toast sticks. And these, along with a side of applesauce and maybe some green beans, actually meets the guidelines. But is that ultimately the best food for your children or small children that you encounter as they're choosing what they're going to be eating or as they're laying a foundation for their food palette for the future? I myself was a little disillusioned as a parent because I was a working mom who was trying to feed my children as best as possible and make sure that they had healthy meals each day. But sometimes making a healthy meal and sending it to school with them was either expensive, time-consuming, or there were food safety issues. So what I wanted to do is change the system a little bit. So myself and some of my nutrition students tried to take a school lunch and tried to make it healthier. But the thing that came to the forefront of our minds as we tried to implement this is the kids need to eat it. So we made these fabulous school lunches, 3, 4 different kinds, where the children could try them and they were different. There was a lot of variety. They were very healthy. They were high in fiber with fresh fruits and vegetables, and they were relatively inexpensive the way that we had created them. However, some of the foods were foods that the children hadn't tried before. They'd never eaten. So we didn't appeal to what the children knew. So with the children, they kind of pushed away some of the meals we as adults thought that they would enjoy. What we did find was that if we had a meal that had dip in it, they were more likely to choose that because dip is something that's familiar. So even if you have something like a Greek yogurt and you put a little ranch dressing in with it and you mix that up, you've got a high protein dip, and then they can take something like hard carrots, uncooked carrots, and dip it in that ranch dip that you've created that is relatively low in fat, high in protein, and a healthier option. So what we found was if you take something that they know, like dip or pizza or sandwiches, and then you alter them slightly as far as how they look and taste, but you alter them nutritionally, significantly, the children will choose and accept some of these nutritionally superior food options because they are similar to what they've been used to. With families, there are often financial challenges, especially as someone is raising multiple children and if it's a one-income household. Children are very vulnerable to nutritional deficiencies, and families who don't have a lot of funds unfortunately can't buy the healthiest foods for their children or don't have the time to prepare those healthiest foods. The states recognize this. And so there are programs here in Illinois, in Texas, in many states that allow for an offset of cost to these families. So if you're working with a family where they can't afford food for their children that's as healthy as it could be, you might want to recommend that they check into some of these programs. But even if they are approved for a program and they're purchasing and consuming some of those foods from the program, food is still expensive and they still will have an investment on their part as far as time and their own expenses beyond that. Another piece of the puzzle is most parents don't have a lot of nutrition education that they've been exposed to. There's a lot of misinformation in the field of nutrition. In fact, if you think about this, doctors don't even need a nutrition course at all before they graduate with their MD. So if you're scoffing at parents who didn't know this was healthy or thought this unhealthy food was a better choice, please don't judge. Parents are busy, children are busy, finding reliable nutrition information can be difficult. So if you're someone who has exposure to nutrition education, I encourage you to share it in a loving and encouraging way that opens the doors of communication. And now that we've talked about nutrition, let's change gears and discuss getting those kids active. When we're talking about activity, we can talk about sport, exercise, or physical activity. These three terms have very different definitions. Sport involves a competition. There's a winner, there's a loser, there might be multiple places in between. Exercise is a planned movement. It's where you're actually saying, I want to go and move my body and be physically active. And so you're actually scheduling that time, and that is included in the term exercise. Physical activity encompasses any movement. So if you carry laundry from upstairs in your bedroom, downstairs to the laundry room, technically that's physical activity. All of these, sport, exercise, and physical activity, have a role in a healthy child as they're developing. When we're talking about sport, there are so many options, and there's a variety of ways to even join a sport. If you live in an area where there is a park district, there are park district options where children can get involved in competitive sport. Schools have athletics, oftentimes from grade school, middle school, up through high school. So some of these children from second, third grade on might have school athletics that they can participate. And if you're lucky enough to have club activities in your area, oftentimes you can do something like wrestling year-round or basketball year-round and compete in one of those sports that you absolutely love. The goal is trying to find something they love. But what if they don't like competition? For example, my daughter, Savannah, despises sport of any kind. We tried martial arts, basketball, soccer. We even tried swimming. She had taken swim lessons, and her swim instructor said, she's more or less maxed out. We've taught her everything we can. Have you thought about getting her into swim competitions? So we took her over to find out if she would enjoy that. And I remember standing on the sidelines with the coach, and my daughter was swimming laps, so she swam down, kicked, swam back, and I'm continuing to talk to the coach. And every time she swam back and made eye contact with me, she shook her head violently, almost like saying, no. And then she'd do a flip again and go the other direction. And so I would continue the conversation with the coach saying, well, we'll have a conversation with Savannah and we'll find out if she wants to join the swim team. Needless to say, she didn't join that swim team, and she ultimately has not been in competitive sport for years, since I've decided that we don't necessarily have to have her in competition to have her healthy. Another option for children is exercise or planned movement. So there can be dance classes, swim lessons, group fitness classes, and more. Getting the family involved in some of these is an option, or dropping a child off and having them interact with their peers in these planned movement activities are options as well. And lastly, we have physical activity. And with physical activity, there's no need to compete. There's no need to schedule. Pretty much anything that's movement is going to help with health and development. So things like riding a bike with your family, hiking, climbing a tree, all of these fall in the category of physical activity. Even just walking up and down the stairs counts as physical activity. The key to any of this is keeping it fun. You don't want to make it seem like healthy food or physical activity is a punishment. You want to see it as rewarding. So with children, if you realize they need to get a little more physical activity, you can put heart rate monitors on them and say, hey, let's see if you can get your heart rate up to 125 or 130. You can have them run up and down the stairs, and then you can monitor what's going on with their little bodies. They get pretty excited to be able to try on the big kid stuff. You can tell them, let's go walk around the block until we sweat, or let's play this game outside of tag until we sweat. And so you can have a goal in mind, even if it's not winning something. And when we're talking about keeping things fun, we also want to keep nutrition and food options fun. So if you have a child that's going to the grocery store with you, say, hey, let's pick out a new healthy food you've never tried before. And then you can bring it home, you can make it as a family or as individuals, and you can try that new food. Sometimes it'll be a hit and they'll love it. Other times they will not love it. But allowing them to explore is something that's going to carry on through adult years if it's something that they really enjoy. So when we're trying to keep food fun, one way to do it is get the kids involved. Get them involved in the shopping. Let them help with the cooking. Sit down and eat with them and praise them when they try something new. Great job. I love that you tried the red stuff. Let's see if we can try a rainbow. Try an orange thing now. How about a yellow thing? Ooh, you don't like greens. I bet you won't eat a green. You can challenge them in a way that will allow them to explore the food options, have fun with it, and learn as they go. We also want to keep movement fun. It does not need to be a chore. Like with food, we want to give them choices. And so if you want to make it even more fun, you could have a jar of adventures that you label, and you could have slips of paper in there with explore a building at the University of Illinois. Let's go on a scavenger hunt outside. Let's walk the dog. Let's go climb a tree. Having that jar of adventures will get them excited about movement. And if they don't like one of the things they pick out, say, let's pick a different one. The biggest thing is having fun with it. And we're developing their little minds. Let's help them do it in a healthy way. Here's a quote that I saw. Let's teach our sons and daughters. It's not about being beautiful. Teach them to be bold, be silly, be strong, be confident, be independent and intelligent. Be brave and be fierce. Be real in a world full of fake. Let's redefine beauty. I love that because it focuses on the health, the wellness, the holistic person as they're developing. So in a brief overview, children have very unique concerns. It's a time of increased physical ability, cognitive growth, physical development, and emotional development. Let's make it a fun journey to be on with them.